What does a threat to make Canada the 51st state have to do with your gas bill in Ottawa, Toronto's taxes, and a Blue Jays swing at a World Series run? Let's connect the dots. It's Friday, January 9th, 2026. Quick Ottawa weather, around 4 degrees Celsius today, up to 6 and down to 2, and no rain. We'll start local. Ottawa police have charged teacher Stephen Patrick Ruth with possessing and sharing child sexual abuse and exploitation material. Investigators say he used online pseudonyms, including Steve Ruth and Maruthio86, and was arrested after a search of his East End home. The Ottawa Carleton District School Board placed him on leave and sent support to the school community. In a separate case in Cambridge, Ontario, police charged Justin Garzon with more than 30 offenses tied to child exploitation and sexual assault. Investigators allege he used numerous aliases on platforms like TikTok, Snapchat, and Kik over several years, and they believe there may be more victims who have not yet come forward. If you have information, contact police. In the Ottawa Valley, an oversized log load led to multiple charges. OPP stopped a 29-year-old driver from Earlton on Paul Martin Drive near Pembroke. The truck and logs stretched over 31 meters, with officers citing excessive length, an insecure load, and missing required rear lighting. Charges under the Highway Traffic Act were laid against the driver, including failing to mark an overhanging load and not carrying a complete daily inspection report, and against the company for overlength and missing electronic logging device documentation. Nationally, the global chessboard is moving, and Canada is on it. France's President Emmanuel Macron criticized U.S. foreign policy, citing Donald Trump's threats toward Canada, including the notion of making Canada the 51st state. As an example of Washington prioritizing power over alliances, European leaders, including Germany's Frank-Walter Steinmeier, also flagged U.S. actions in places like Venezuela and Greenland as part of a broader push for influence across the Western Hemisphere. Why does this matter here? Because the same currents shape what we pay for energy and how we sell our goods. Case in point, Canadian heavy oil prices are under pressure. Western Canada Select is trading at a discount of about $14.45 below West Texas Intermediate, the widest gap since July 2024. One driver is the increased prospect of Venezuelan barrels flowing to the U.S., with up to 50 million barrels slated under recent developments. That supply competition makes it tougher for Canadian heavy oil to find the best price. For Ottawa households, cheaper crude can eventually mean relief at the pump, but for the country, it squeezes producers and tax revenues tied to the energy sector. The trade picture is shifting too. Canada's exports to the U.S. fell to 67.3% of total exports in October, the lowest non-pandemic share since 1997, amid American tariffs and our push to diversify. Imports from the U.S. actually rose 5.3%, while exports fell, leaving a merchandise trade deficit of $583 million Canadian dollars. Overall imports rose 3.4% and exports 2.1%, with electronics and precious metals driving activity. Diversification is accelerating. More gold is heading to the UK, and oil shipments to China are increasing. For businesses in Ottawa and across Ontario, that means new market opportunities, but also more uncertainty as supply chains adapt. The calendar matters here. Canada heads into a mandatory review of the Canada-US-Mexico Agreement, beginning this month. The U.S. Trade Representative has set conditions for Canada's continued participation, including changes to market access for American dairy and addressing provincial restrictions on U.S. alcohol. Expect dairy, booze, and buy local rules to share headlines with autos and minerals in the months to come. There's also diplomacy in motion. Prime Minister Mark Carney is headed to China January 13 to 17 to discuss trade, energy, agriculture, and international security with President Xi Jinping. British Columbia sees an opening for LNG and mining exports. Ontario Premier Doug Ford is drawing a red line against relaxing the 100% tariff on Chinese electric vehicles, arguing it protects Ontario's auto jobs. Former diplomat Michael Kovrig says the trip is significant, but warns Canada must be clear-eyed about Beijing's intentions, especially given our complex ties with Washington. This is where climate meets industry. EVs are central to decarbonization, but the tariff debate pits affordability and emissions goals against domestic manufacturing. The stakes are high on both fronts. Staying on 2026 policy changes, tax tweaks are modest this year, but there's one you'll notice. Ottawa's lowest federal marginal income tax rate drops from 15% to 14%. Not transformative, but tangible on low and modest incomes. In Toronto, the proposed 2026 budget centers on affordability. A 2.2% property tax increase, 0.7% on the general rate, and 1.5% for the City Building Fund, after bigger hikes in previous years. The city would freeze TTC fares and introduce fare capping at 47 rides a month, raise the municipal land transfer tax on properties over $3 million, expand school meal programs, grow transit and emergency services, deliver a 5% tax cut for small businesses, boost libraries to 7 days a week, and lift water and waste levies by 3.75% each. The city's strategy leans on asking more from luxury property buyers and speculators while holding transit fares to ease pressure on commuters. But Toronto is also wrestling with an unforced error. The province's transition to producer-run recycling under circular materials stumbled out of the gate on January 1st. The CEO, Alan Langdon, blamed the timing for a rocky start that left recycling bins uncollected across wide swaths of the city, west and east of Yonge. From the Humber to Victoria Park, Steeles to the lake, he called the lapses unacceptable and promised a smooth experience going forward. The hiccups land just as the city scrutinizes crime statistics near supervised consumption sites and tries to land its 2026 budget. For Ottawa listeners watching our own waste contracts and diversion rates, this is a reminder: outsourcing big civic services needs airtight execution. Out west, British Columbia politics are stirring. Northern MLA Sheldon Clare is running for leader of the BC Conservative Party, vowing to keep former provincial Liberals from regaining control. He calls that faction a failed model and says he'll hold the line against NDP and former Liberal policies. Clare, a former National Firearms Association president and a past instructor at the College of New Caledonia, says he'll bring a northern perspective focused on fair infrastructure and service distribution. He joins a growing field to replace John Rustad. Let's end with some baseball optimism. The Blue Jays have signed slugger Kazuma Okamoto to a 4-year, $60 million deal. The 6-time All-Star and 3-time home run champion with Japan's Yomiuri Giants helped Team Japan win the 2023 World Baseball Classic, homering in the final against the U.S. He told reporters he's very happy to join Toronto, and in a delightful twist, said his daughter's love of the Jays logo helped seal the decision. GM Ross Atkins praised Okamoto's ability to handle different pitching styles and his defensive versatility. The team is very clearly eyeing a return to the World Series, and adding a proven power bat moves that dream a step closer. Before we go, one more Ottawa note on that oil and trade story. When Canadian barrels fetch less and North American supply changes, it filters through to municipal budgets, construction costs, and household bills, even far from the oil patch. Keep an eye on the CUSMA talks, on whether Venezuelan flows materialize as expected, and on whether diversification to the UK and China continues. Those levers will say a lot about prices and paychecks in 2026. That's all for today. If you have tips on local stories or want us to dig deeper into the EV tariff debate and what it means for climate targets in Ottawa, send a note. Stay warm, Ottawa. 4 degrees Celsius today, up to 6 and down to 2, and no rain.